Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So today I finally gotten the artifact comparison video ready for you guys. So first off, before I start, I just want to do a couple of quick notes. So note number one is that the artifact comparison will be done per weapon because different weapons have different effects that may affect exactly which artifact is better. It may change the result. Of course, there are some weapons where their behavior or their subset is the same and the artifact builds will more or less be the same in terms of the ranking of the artifacts. But that really depends. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing the math for every specific weapon. So you'll see the video being divided into chapters or sections as per the weapons. Okay? Because I have received comments that are saying that they are saying that I'm comparing weapon when they don't even look properly. That it's not about a weapon comparison, it's a comparison of the artifact specific to that weapon itself. And if anyone tells you that the weapon doesn't matter, that's misinformation. Because while in most cases, or in some cases, generally speaking, you can say that certain artifacts are better than certain artifacts for a specific character based on their kit. But when you use a different weapon, that may change. A best example is actually Yomiya, as you can see in the gameplay video here. Her weapons, because of how bow weapons are like, there are bows that give a lot of attack and bows that give a lot of damage bonus. When there's a lot of damage bonus, it can change which artifact is better. Okay, so anyway, that's that. That's the first note. Note number two will be I will first run through the F2P weapons, the 3-star Chilling Tales of Dragon Slayer, followed by the craftable weapons. I will skip Hakushin Ring because, like I said, I don't recommend that weapon at all. And then we'll talk about 5-star weapons if time permits. If time doesn't permit, then we'll just do another video specific to the 2 5-star weapons that we did in our weapon comparison. Okay? If you guys have tried the new Spiral Abyss Floor 11, you know that Kokomi's heal is going to be very, very welcome in that corrosion effect, and likely in the new mobs that give the true damage. True damage means their damage can bypass your shields. So obviously, MiHoYo is trying to change from a shield meta to a healer meta. That's why I covered that in a very quick video. You can find the video on the top right corner over there. Over here. So that's that. Now let's talk about the different artifact combinations that we are looking at here. So first off, we have 4-piece Heart of Death, right? She's a Hydro character, and we want to look at her DPS capability at the same time. You have 2-piece Heart of Death with 2-piece Maidens, 2-piece Tenacity of the Millilith with 2-piece Maidens, 2-piece Heart of Death with 2-piece Tenacity of the Millilith. So it's pretty straightforward, right? So it's these 3 different artifact sets or artifact combinations, and then we'll just do a 2-piece mix and match between them. And for 4-piece wise, we have Heart of Death and Tenacity of the Millilith. I did not include 4-piece Maidens here because 4-piece Maidens feels kind of overkill to me. I mean, it's just pure healing. I'll rather be able to buff at the same time. That's what I would recommend a support build to equip, which is the 4-piece Tenacity of the Millilith. Let's see how the damage looks like in terms of percentage comparison. And to sum all the different damage together, be it the elemental skill or the burst together. So in 2 seconds at C0, she can deal about 30k damage with 4-piece Heart of Death using a 3-star weapon, Chilling Tales of the Dragon Slayer. Which is not too bad, right? I mean, considering it's a 3-star weapon, she can deal 30k damage in 2 seconds. That's not too bad. Although, if you compare it to other characters like what I did in the first math guide video, you'll see that it's not that great. But it's fine because she has a utility coupled together with her attacks, which is her healing. And we all know how welcome it is now in the new meta moving forward. So anyway, these are the figures for the C0, and this is the difference comparison. How to read this? Basically, 2-piece Heart of Death with 2-piece Maiden is 2.6% behind or lower than that of the 4-piece HOD. We are talking about this figure versus this figure. You can see that it's about 700 plus lower, and that 700 plus is about 2.6%. and so on and so forth, you'll see that the artifacts are already sorted from left to right, best to worst. But bear in mind that this sorting is based on C0. Throughout the different weapons, the best to worst ranking may change depending on the constellations as well as the talent levels. Okay, so we have here 666, 999, and 1299. 12 is the burst level. Maybe I should reorder it to 9912 for your easy understanding, right? Okay, but anyway, I think you guys know what I mean. There's no way to get level 12 normal talent right now in the game. So you see here, this is the percentage figures. You guys can pause it at any time if you want to look at it in further detail. I will talk about it in the analysis below. So likewise for the 1299, what I have done is basically you start with C3. There's no way you can get level 12 burst without C3. Okay, let's establish that first. Then you have all the different effects, then you have C6, etc. So effectively here we have C0, C1, here we have C3, C6. And you'll notice this percentage figure is actually very small in comparison. Right? Yeah, don't worry, I'll talk about that later. So first off, artifact stats. We are focusing on the HP percentage upgrades here. Based on these figures, there's only 5 upgrades that can go wrong. I know, it's almost like perfect, but not exactly. And also, we're not looking for crit stats here, we are looking for HP percentage stats, which is arguably easier than crit. As for the 4 rows, because I do see people asking about the rows, so let me just put this out here. ER percentage, attack percent, HP percentage, or flat HP that you're looking for. These 4 stats. Of course, if you don't have all these, the most important is still HP percentage and ER percentage, just so that you can get your burst uptime higher. Attack percent, of course, is for your normal talents, because no matter how she skills based off of HP, there is still some skilling based on attack percent. Between flat HP and EM, I would say they are interchangeable depending on the build that you are building. Getting more EM is not a bad thing as well. Okay. Artifact main stat options, we are going with HP Hydro Healing bonus for all the comparison figures here. Since if you saw my previous videos, it's pretty much the best combination across all the different weapons. Okay, artifacts are sorted by best to worst from left to right, like I mentioned. But there is one thing that I did not mention earlier, which is at C1 plus, which means C1 and above, 2-piece Heart of Death with 2-piece Tenacity or Millilith will outdo 2-piece Millilith with 2-piece Maidens. Why? Because the 2-piece HOD or Heart of Death effect, it does boost the C1's fish, the fish that does 30% or base of Kokomi's HP, max HP, but the 2-piece Maiden doesn't. Because 2-piece Maiden, the buff is given to normal attacks and charge attacks. But this C1 fish effect, there is a specific text to say that it is not considered as a normal attack damage. Alright, so let's get that out there. In case you guys are thinking of doing some other combination other than 4-piece HOD. Alright, now let's talk about conclusion. Oh, sorry, there's a typo here. So, to conclude for TToDS, 4-piece HOD is indeed the BIS for DPS if you want to use TToDS as a DPS. Now, I already did a weapon comparison before. TToDS doesn't really fall off that too far. So you can choose to use it if you want to, if you're on a budget, or if you want to let her buff your other team members at the same time. Or rather, right after she leaves the field. So that's an option. 2-piece Heart of Death and 2-piece Maiden is actually a very close contender. It's about 0.5 to 3.5% lower than 4-piece HOD, depending on constellations and talent levels. But bear in mind that 2-piece HOD and 2-piece Maiden, for example, at C6 and your burst level being 12, it's only 0.5% behind the 4-piece HOD. These are the two figures. Okay, you can see that the difference is 280, sorry. It's only a difference of 280, the damage in 2 seconds. But the heals 2-piece HOD, 2-piece Maiden does heal more than the 4-piece HOD. Now bear in mind this is the normal attack heal, not the elemental skill heals. Okay. I also have a heal figure based on the C2 being active, but that is very conditional. That is when your character's HP are less than 50%, then you heal more. But once they hit beyond 50%, then your healing drops to this figure. So that's the reason why I say 2-piece Heart of Death with 2-piece Maiden is a very close contender, but it's still not as high damage as the 4-piece HOD. Okay, 4-piece HOD is still BIS for DPS anyway. So C1 improves the damage from HP, while C6 provides hydro damage bonus, which diminishes on 4-piece HOD. This is the reason why C6 2-piece HOD and 2-piece Maiden only falls off by 0.5% DPS wise. I'm just giving you guys the explanation here, in case you're wondering. So my personal recommendation for Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer is to use, is definitely to go for 4-piece HOD, but you can use the other artifact builds, excluding 4-piece TOTM, because the difference is pretty big compared to the rest. Especially at C0R1 is 14.3% versus a 2-piece HOD, 2-piece Maiden, we are 2.6% behind. All of these assume the same artifact stats arose, okay? But that's to be expected because 4-piece TOTM in the first place is meant to be a support set, not to be a DPS set. And these tables here shows you which are the better placeholder until you get your 4-piece HOD. So remember to check this out if you need to. You can pause the video anytime to just look at the figures. Yeah. The easiest way is just look at the percentage figure. The smaller the percentage, the closer it is to 4-piece HOD. As simple as that. Now, support Kokomi. So obviously 4-piece TOTM is great for the attack buff, as well as the fact that the 2-piece effect helps with Kokomi. And in fact, the 4-piece TOTM actually offers you the highest DPS on her elemental skill outside of burst. Which, if you're a support character, you're not supposed to use burst that much. Theoretically speaking anyway. Okay. So, but it does have the lowest Kokomi DPS during her burst amongst all these artifact builds. Like I said, the percentage is pretty big. The percentage difference. But honestly, if you're using a support Kokomi, you're not looking for damage on her. So I don't think it's too bad of an issue. If I do use a support Kokomi, if I play a support Kokomi, I will be using 4-piece Tenacity of Melodeth. It's kinda no-brainer for me, even if the damage figure is the lowest. So for support Kokomi, although I talk about what my personal recommendation is already, but essentially you can go for 2-piece HOD, 2-piece Maiden if you want to have higher heals while not sacrificing her damage during burst. That's a perfectly viable choice, it's up to you. Or 4-piece TOTM for attack buff and best DPS outside of burst, which like I said, you shouldn't be looking to use her burst at 100% uptime to begin with. Her burst should be used when you need clutch shielding. That's the way I see it. So my personal recommendation, 4-piece TOTM, because honestly speaking, the 4-piece TOTM heals aren't too far off. Yes, DPS is far off, but the heals are not. It's 4022 versus 4163. Now let's look at C0R1 to be fair. 2781 versus 2879. 100. Yeah, I think it's fine, right? The difference of 100 heal in 2 seconds, by the way, not in 2 seconds. Just bear in mind that I did not include her burst initial hit damage in all this damage figure comparison, because it does very little damage in comparison to her burst duration, unlike Raiden. Like Raiden's burst does pretty much 1/3 of her full damage potential, whereas for Kokomi it's very small, superly small. Alright, so that is it for TToDS, sorry, Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer. The video is already 14 minutes long, but I did spend a lot of time talking about introducing how to understand the table and the intro notes, etc. Now let's speed up a bit. We'll talk about prototype and burn needs. Sorry, my comments a bit lagging. What's wrong? Okay, so Prototype Ember, same kind of construct, 666, 999 on talents, and 1299, 12 being the burst. These are the figures and the heals. So you guys can check that out for yourself. What I'm going to do here is, as per the previous weapon, we talk about the stats. These are the total damage in 2 seconds, C0, C1, and then the percentage for C0 and the percentage difference for C1. Okay. Likewise, for talent 999, it's the same thing. I'm going slower here so that you guys, if you want to pause and compare the figures, you have the option. Likewise here as well. Okay, so now, the good thing is, a lot of this is the same, because that's how I made the comparison as fair as possible, even across weapons. So I'm not going to touch all these portions here. I've already talked about them when we talk about TToDS. Now, if you have skipped to this specific weapon, feel free to jump back to the Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer, where I just briefly spoke about all this. Likewise, I've already covered this, so I don't want to talk about it again. Let's just talk about the conclusion. So, 4-piece HOD, again, the BIS for DPS, as you can see, is pretty much almost the same as that of the TToDS, because between Prototype Ember and TToDS, they're very similar in the sense that they both give HP substat. Their R1 to R5 do not affect the actual DPS. That is the reason why you will not see much of a difference between the Prototype Ember and the TToDS artifact comparison. Damage figures wise, there is still some difference. Prototype Ember will still do more than TToDS, but I already covered that in the weapon comparison, so let's not go there. So everything else really is the same here. The only difference is that instead of 3.5%, it's 3.6%. Not much of a difference really. And same thing, my suggestion, use the other artifact builds excluding the 4-piece TOTM as placeholder option until you get 4-piece HOD. As simple as that. But honestly speaking, it's very easy to farm for Kokomi. So if you spend a bit of effort, it should be doable. I mean, I already have a full 4-piece tenacity for Kokomi. I have a EM build for her. I am trying to work on a second EM build for her, which I'll cover more when I do the full EM video guide. Okay. Even support Kokomi here, this portion is exactly the same as Prototype Ember. Alright, so not much difference between Prototype Ember and TToDS in terms of artifact comparison. It's the most similar in fact. Okay, now let's talk about the next craftable 4-star weapon, which will be Mappa Mare. Right. So for Mappa Mare itself, I think a lot of people have this weapon. At least from the comments, it seems like quite a number of people have this weapon at R5. Okay, so congrats to you guys. I don't think I can craft R5 Mappa Mare. Yeah, I can't. I don't have enough billets. Now, for Mappa Mare, because there is a damage difference between R1 and R5, so the figures are longer. Or rather, there's more figures. So you'll see here that the R1 set of figures are here, the R5 set of figures is here, and then you have the normal attack heals. And of course, I have correlated the figures. This is the R1 Mappa Mare figures in total damage in 2 seconds. This is R5 Mappa Mare, total damage in 2 seconds. Likewise, the percentage figures are here for your viewing. Okay. If you notice, this is what I always talk about, right? When this will be the third time I will talk about this. So when you go from C0 to C1, you'll see that this particular artifact build is better than this. Why? Already explained it before, so we're not going to go there. Okay, now this is for the talents level 999. Pause this if you need to compare the figures. Next is for 1299, with burst being the level 12. So you have C3, C6 with R1, R5 Mappa Mare comparisons here. Do you see these figures here? This is the reason why I say that when you compare artifacts, you should compare it specific to weapons. Because when you see a negative figure here, it means that HOD is no longer the best. But to be fair, these percentage figures are very small. It's as good as no difference really. But at least it reaches such a state, right? Compared to the first two weapons, where it's clear cut that 4-piece HOD is a winner. Okay, now let's talk more in detail about that. Okay, again, I'm not gonna talk about this. We already covered it in TToDS session. So to conclude, 4-piece BOS, 4-piece, let's just say, 4-piece HOD is BIS for R1 Mappa, even at C6. This is where we're talking about. I mean, the 2-piece HOD with 2-piece Maiden is only 0.1% behind. In fact, all the 2-piece mix and match is only 0.1 to 0.2% behind, but I can still say that HOD is better, although they are more or less the same. Okay, now 4-piece HOD, it actually drops to second worst for R5 Mappa at C6. There's a big curve right here at C6, and provided your C6 condition is activated. Now this is mainly because of this. C1 improves damage from HP, C6 provides hydro damage which diminishes on 4-piece HOD, thus allowing other artifact builds to overtake 4-piece HOD in this case, which will be here. Honestly speaking, it's not a big difference. You can say that they are still the same, but at least it reaches a stage where 4-piece HOD is on par with the 2-piece mix and match. So the recommendation obviously is going to be different, but I'll talk about it shortly. I forgot to talk about this point here at I just realized, hang on, this should be D. Okay, so now, corrosion in the new abyss, I already talked about it at the beginning of this video. It looks to be about minus 5% HP each second, which is a lot. So C6 effect will basically be active every 2 hits, but it's not active without corrosion or the neutral damage mod. So in my opinion, it's still too conditional for a C6. I would rather not get it, for me personally. I'd rather get a C6 where the effect is more or less reliably triggered every single time when I'm doing DPS. Because I'm spending so much money to get C6, it has to be good. It has to be reliable. Okay? So the recommendation is going to be a bit different from the prototype Ember as well as the TToDS, mainly because of the fact that at C6, any of the 2-piece mix and match will perform slightly better, but difference is negligible. So in other words, for Mappa, you actually have more flexibility with regards to your artifacts. You can use the artifacts that have better rolls, or you can choose based on heals as well. So meaning that if you're using a R5 Mappa and for some reason you are going C6 without getting a 5-star weapon, I know there are people who do that, by the way, because they hate the weapon banner and they find the weapon banner to be too much of a scam, which is fine, to each his own. Okay, so you have the flexibility of choosing between all of these permutations. So basically find the 2 best pieces that you have. What are the 4 best pieces or artifacts that you can get from these 4 combinations? And then you are good to go. So that's very nice, right? You have the added flexibility to work with whatever artifacts you have on hand, provided you did save some of them. Now for support Kokomi, you should not be using Mappa to begin with. There's nothing that Mappa does for a support build. Like literally nothing. Doesn't give anything, it doesn't help do anything at all. So you should not be using Mappa for support. Okay? Alright, the video is 24 minutes at the moment. You know what, I'll just cover the 5-star weapons as well, since my previous videos were even longer than this. Okay, now let's talk about the 5-star weapons. First, Skyward Atlas. Crap. Sorry, I forgot to change this. Skyward Atlas. But don't worry, the figures are definitely Skyward Atlas figures, because I always jump straight to the figures. So the same thing, we have R1, R5 figures and the heals, and then you have the R1 summary as well as the R5 summary. Okay. Likewise, level 999 talents. Now you guys can look at the figures while I correct the weapon name. Okay, so these are the figures collated at R1 and R5 level 999 talents. Next we have the 1299 talents, which is essentially wheel territory, because you need C3 to get the level 12 burst. Okay, likewise, our everlasting Moonglow R5. Oh man. Okay, Skyward Atlas. I need to copy and paste this. Okay, you know what? I think you guys know what I mean, right? This is Skyward Atlas, this is not everlasting Moonglow. Okay, you know what? Let me just quickly pause the video and I'll skip to where it's all edited. Okay, sorry about that. So everything has been updated correctly. This is Skyward Atlas. Reminder, this is Skyward Atlas, this is not everlasting Moonglow. Okay? So these are the figures. And you have the 1299 talent figures here as well. Alright. Yeah, sorry. Skyward Atlas was the last weapon that I did the math for. By then I was already kinda exhausted, so we were jumping straight into the figures and we forgot to update this. Right, now for the first 2 points, sorry, it's gonna be the same. Okay, there's no difference from all the rest of the weapons. Conclusion, 4-piece HOD again is the BIS for Skyward Atlas before burst level 12. There's a caveat here, it's before burst level 12, which is actually the same as Mappa. Okay, IEC3. So 4-piece HOD actually drops to second worst for R5 Skyward at C6 due to C below, which is again, I already talked about this, C1 and C6. Okay, so it's 0.1%. The 2-piece mix and match is 0.1% better than the 4-piece HOD, which is pretty much the same. But again, like I said, at least for these two weapons, Mappa and Skyward Atlas, you have the flexibility of using the 2-piece mix and match as opposed to other weapons where 4-piece HOD is the clear-cut winner. Alright, now let's see what else do I want to talk about. Corrosion, we already mentioned it, so it's the same for Mappa. I just want to remind you guys that corrosion, with the corrosion effect, yes, C6 will be active every 2 seconds, sorry, every 2 hits, but it's still every 2 hits, you still don't get it in one of the hits. So the actual effect from C6 is not great. So anyway, my recommendation as usual, 4-piece HOD, but you can use the other artifact builds as placeholder options until you get 4-piece HOD. And refer to the table for which are better placeholders. But honestly speaking, it's pretty straightforward where at C6 you have the flexibility of using all this. If you are at C0, it's still better to go for 4-piece HOD and 2-piece HOD, 2-piece Maiden as your placeholder if you can. Otherwise, between 2-piece TOTM and 2-piece Maiden with 2-piece HOD and 2-piece TOTM, these two are pretty near in performance. Only the 4-piece TToDS is a bit far off. Okay. Yeah, I already talked about this. And for support Kokomi, yes, you should not be using Everlasting Moonglow. And why am I putting it here? For support Kokomi, Skyward Atlas, the thing about Skyward Atlas, right, is that it's not that great of a support weapon. It's okay as a sub DPS weapon because the Skyward Atlas proc effect can stay on the field when you switch character. I'm using it on my sub account because I happen to get the weapon. I'm using it on Mona in my freeze comp and it helps a little, so that's not too bad. So Skyward Atlas more of a sub DPS instead of support if you really want to use it in that way. By the way, support Kokomi, don't use these weapons, yeah? Use either the Prototype Ember or the Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer. Yes, now I finally go to the actual Everlasting Moonglow. I apologize for that. The Skyward Atlas artifact page is a bit incomplete, or it was lacking a bit of review, so I apologize for that. Now, Everlasting Moonglow, these are the figures again. Level 666 talents. You have the difference here. If you guys notice, the percentage figures do have a bigger difference between these artifact builds as opposed to the earlier weapons. Why? It's because Everlasting Moonglow really is designed to take advantage of the... It already provides a lot of HP and healing bonus, etc. in this setup, so the 4-piece HOD helps a lot. That's why. Now you have the 999 talents, 999. Okay, these are the figures. And 1299. Again, these are the figures. So R5 Everlasting Moonglow, 2 seconds C6, you get this figure. Given the heavy investment, I don't know, I kind of feel like it should be more. But this is already pretty nice. But it's C6 R5, so... Alright, so obviously when I talk about 5-star weapons, it's going to be very real talk, real territory talk. If it's not applicable for you, feel free to jump ahead to the outro or the final section of the video. Okay, 1, 2, 3, pretty much the same, not going to talk about them. Again, 4-piece HOD is BIS, but for Everlasting Moonglow is a very resounding strong BIS because regardless of refinements, regardless of constellations, it's still BIS, unlike say Skyward Atlas and Mappa. At R5, Everlasting Moonglow, 2-piece HOD, 2-piece TOTM will always outdo 2-piece TOTM, 2-piece Maiden, regardless of talent level. And throughout the different type of comparison that I've done with regards to burst levels, constellations, as well as weapon refinements, 2-piece HOD, 2-piece Maiden maintains the second best slot throughout. Okay. The gap between the 2-piece mix and match options and 4-piece HOD draws closer as constellation and talent levels increase, just like all the other weapons. But 4-piece HOD still has a very resounding lead. So basically, if you're going to get Everlasting Moonglow, you really should use 4-piece HOD as the artifact build or the artifact set to go for. C1 improves damage from... Okay, this I already talked about. This is going to be like 5th time I talk about this, so yeah, we are not going to talk about this, we'll just skip this portion. Corrosion, I already mentioned this as well, too conditional for C6. Even with corrosion being like a minus 5% HP every second. So like I said, 4-piece HOD, the lead is even bigger than with all the other weapons. And same thing, you can use the other artifact builds, excluding 4-piece Millilith, as a placeholder option until you get your 4-piece HOD. But honestly speaking, you're not looking for crit on the artifacts, it's going to be very easy to get the workable or usable artifacts for Kokomi. So all the best of luck in your artifact farming for Heart of Death. If you happen to have Child or Ganyu, I think you would have some of these HOD pieces saved up. It's just a matter of whether or not or rather I should say you would have farmed such artifacts before. It's whether you save them, because I don't think anyone would save a artifact without crit. I mean, even for myself, all the artifacts that I save are with crit rolls. So Kokomi kind of screwed me over in that aspect, but yeah, it's fine. We'll just continue. We'll just farm for her. We'll just farm new artifacts for her. Yes, for support Kokomi, you should not be using Everlasting Moonglow, since you have something like Prototype Apple and TToDS, which are really great support weapons. Right, so this is the artifact comparison for all the different weapons. End of the day, I'll say 4-piece HOD is definitely the BIS. But I hope this comparison helps you guys to see how the other artifact combinations rank against HOD and amongst themselves as well, so you know which are the artifacts to avoid, so to speak. Okay. And for Skyward Atlas and Mappa, if you're at C6, if you bother to C6, or if you're willing, sorry, I shouldn't say bother. If you're willing to C6 Kokomi, then you have a much more flexible artifact option. 4-piece HOD is not the BIS. You have 4 different artifact builds that can work when you have C6. They more or less perform the same if you have C6 and you're using Skyward Atlas or Mappa R5. No, actually even R1 Mappa is the same. Alright, so anyway, I hope the content has been helpful to you guys. Thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content, remember like the video and click subscribe for more. My next video will likely be a full EM Kokomi build. I'm quite interested in trying that out, and I've been trying to get the artifacts for it too. I do have some usable ones, not the best, but usable. So I'll definitely do a video guide on that, the math video guide first, then when we do get Kokomi, I'll try her out with these builds. Support build, HP typical DPS build, as well as full EM build. Okay, but just not her signature weapon, because I don't think her signature weapon is worth pulling, even as a wheel. Okay, so alright, that's all. Thank you, bye.